Very good morning to all our dear viewers and listeners outside there. Welcome to another edition of The Other Perspective, which takes place every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. East African time. The Other Perspective is brought to you by Alliance Finance Monitoring, the political finance watchdog in Africa. My name is Abel Eseru, and I'm going to be your host today. Before we proceed, I would like all our viewers outside there who are following the program to subscribe to our social media platforms and YouTube channel. On YouTube, we are ACFIM Uganda. Just hit that subscription button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. On Facebook, we are ACFIM. Like our page on Facebook, and on Twitter, our handle is ACFIM UG. But we are also on LinkedIn as Alliance Finance Monitoring. As we proceed, I would like to give you a brief background on what we are going to discuss about today. We are going to be discussing about monopolizing coffee export in Uganda, implications to the ordinary farmer. In February 2022, Uganda's finance minister, Honorable Mattia Kasaija, on behalf of government, and Italian investor, Enrica Peniti, on behalf of Uganda Vinci Coffee Company Limited, signed an agreement that gives the coffee company exclusive rights to buy all coffee in Uganda, even before government can look at other buyers. On top of that, the agreement also highlights that Uganda Vinci Coffee Company Limited will enjoy exemptions in taxes in regards of import duties, value-added tax, excise duties, stamp duty, corporate income tax, and employment-related taxes, as well as any other tax or imposition levied or charged under the laws or any other law that may be enacted in Uganda. On top of that, the finance minister, Honorable Mattia Kasaija, is reported to have said that this agreement will help coffee farmers and government get better coffee deals, because I believe that the middlemen who have been dealing in the coffee market have been making too much money and government has been losing a lot of money. Now, today we want to take a detour and discuss the implication of monopolization of coffee exports to the ordinary farmer. I'm going to be joined by two gallant Ugandans to discuss this topic today. I will start with Honorable Moses Kasbante, who is a former member of parliament of Rubaga North County in Kampala district and is currently the director of Lusambia United Growers Limited, who mainly grow coffee and matoke and other agricultural products. But also we have our usual panelist, Ms. Priska Wanyenya, who is a member of Uganda Parliamentary Press Association. And I know that Parliament was debating about this issue yesterday. I know she will give us some of the insights from what came out of Parliament. So I would like to start with Honorable Moses Kasbanti. What is your take on government decision to create such a monopoly that allows one player to determine coffee prices in a free market economy like Uganda?
In this very wonderful discussion today. I only have to confess I have a problem with my hearing defects, but I could get you loud and clear. I'm trying to control the noise around me in the environment. I'm in a farm, so anything that may not happen well that side, I apologize, but I'm trying to again see how I can fix it better. I should also say I'm very grateful to be joining my former workmate, Priska, and this is a very important topic actually that is joining us together this morning. I want to first of all draw your attention to something that I feel is very important to note. We should understand that the biggest volume of Uganda's coffee production is at the hands of the ordinary farmer, the so-called peasants of Uganda, peasant farmer. We have almost about 90% of the farmers in peasants. I believe about 80% of Uganda's coffee is produced by the very peasant farmer. And you can see the vulnerability that can be exploited if, first of all, we are not protected, if we are not safe, and we could just be put into the most sophisticated hands of European traders. Government of Uganda, I want to note, it has done a very commendable job trying to increase the volume of coffee production, at least in terms of the green bean, the so-called green bean. But the problem is that production that has greatly improved and increased. The Minister of Agriculture has always noted, UCDA has always noted, and we actually can see. But you see, the increment in terms of coffee production in Uganda doesn't mean enhancement of the people that are within the coffee production sector. What it only means is government is increasing the number of plants, coffee plants, and then the ultimate effect of that increment would be increase in coffee production in the country. But the vulnerability, the peasant farmer remains so, even when the amount of coffee that is being produced has, for now, years been increasing almost annually by some percentage. I wanted to note that initially, such that we can understand when we begin to discuss this Vinci, the so-called Vinci Coffee Company Limited that has entered into an agreement with Uganda government, and which I want to straight away say the agreement, when you read it, is kind of exploitive. What the government of Uganda has done is to guarantee protection to a very sophisticated European trader who is actually localizing itself as a Ugandan company. But we all know where it comes from. We could even trace the owners, and we know vis-a-vis the peasant farmers, we may have gotten a raw deal. The agreement places this already vulnerable farmer into the hands of Vinci, a sophisticated European trader, and that is the interest where every Ugandan would be concerned. You would think government of
Honorable,
Uganda...
could you position your phone very well, because we are not seeing you.
Is
position
that
your phone
better?
very well. No?
Could that be better?
That's better. That's better.
Yes. So my point was, the government of Uganda is acting on behalf of every Ugandan farmer in signing this agreement. But when you read the agreement, it is more protecting the European trader than protecting the Ugandan farmer, who is vulnerable, as I have noted already, who is a peasant. And actually, this coffee Uganda produces belongs to the peasant farmer. 80% of the coffee that is produced and traded at the international market is produced by the peasant farmer. You could see very few, I would call them which kind of farmers, more developed farmers within coffee. They are in palm oil, in whichever, but coffee is left to the peasant, and that's where government needs to come in to protect the peasant. I was in Parliament when we were enacting the coffee bill. One of the provisions of that law is that farmers shall be registered by UCDA. And Priska here can bear witness with me. It was a very contentious provision. Many Ugandans feared why government would have an interest in having farming coffee registered. But the explanation was also clearly noted that Uganda wanted to, first of all, organize farmers. And there is no way you could organize farmers without having a record of them. To some of us who are engaged in farming, that would ultimately mean, when you talk of organizing farmers, and you could even remember, we used to have cooperative movement, we could have farmers association, and when you talk of organizing farmers, we would
Your
think in
network
terms
is
of
kind of
having...
breaking. We are not getting you clearly. I don't know whether it's network issues. Maybe.
Is that fine?
Yeah.
That's better. Yes. So
Yes.
the point is, the provision in the Coffee Act is that UCDA shall register farmers. It was a contentious issue, and actually many members of parliament, including the Ugandans outside the parliament, were very worried of why government would have farmers registered. But when the explanation came, some of us said, I think it should be done. That government wanted to reorganize farmers, and reorganizing farmers would ultimately mean having farmers into groups fully acknowledged and recognized by government, and that would ultimately mean having cooperative movement. And you see, when now you talk of this and the farmers whose Coffee Act actually puts them under some report of government and some kind of organization, to me it was like this was a premature agreement. Government would first of organize farmers, and that was the intention of the provision into the Act, the Coffee Act 2021. Now, before, farmers would be organized into very vibrant groups in terms of cooperative society, cooperative movement. Now, there is a sophisticated trader, a European trader, more sophisticated than the peasant Ugandans, who are actually acting individually, guaranteed to the extent that he is the one to determine coffee prices. So no one farm, and you can see the vulnerability. The peasant farmers now who are acting individually, not
Honorable,
organized in
you're
any
kind of
kind of
breaking.
cooperative
I
society,
think you need to
cooperative
first
movement,
of all work
no
on
groups.
your internet. Your network is kind of breaking, so we're not getting you clear. So I will first go to Priska, then I will turn back to you. I think the network should have stabilized. Priska, Honorable Abed Bwaniko yesterday raised an issue of national importance about this very monopolization of coffee export. What is your take about this, especially in regards to as government is this a right deal that government has signed, or and where was Parliament when this deal was being signed?
Thanks so much, Abel, because in the first place, Parliament has not seen this bill formally because, from what I know, that document has not been brought to Parliament. So, literally, the Parliament has not seen the deal. And when Wanika was before he raised the matter, there was a press conference, and they said the opposition is planning to go to sue government in court over this matter and also petition parliament. So they are taking two routes. But what stands out is, although have not been in position to see the real contract, the whole of it, but they feel from the glimpse of reports that I've seen, especially from Daily Monitor, it shows I don't see how the Ugandan farmer is going to benefit from this agreement in the first place. I really don't see any particular clause from what was picked from, because the mere fact that you are exempting someone from paying taxes, all the taxes, and on top of that, that if there is any tax that cannot be avoided by this company, it's the taxpayers who are going to shoulder the burden. So one asks yourself, one as what is it in for the local farmers, because I've literally not seen anything that is going to benefit the local farmers. Because if you talk of the middlemen that have been cheating the local farmers, well, you go after those middlemen that you're talking about, if you know them as you claim, because now the government is taking the softer route of the real problem that the coffee farmers are facing, instead of dealing with the problem head on. And from what I know is, if even the coffee farmers were just taken by surprise when the news came up, because it was just actually the thing was communicated by through a tweet and by the Minister of Finance some time back. I remember doing a story related to that. So here is a minister who is communicating such a sensitive policy through a tweet. And as you heard from Honorable Kasbande, what he has said, a majority of the coffee farmers in Uganda are producing coffee at a subsistence level. It's the few who are on a commercial level with huge chunks of land. But the few, majority of them have their coffee probably in the backyard, in mixing it with the matoke, things like that. So how many of those are accessing that accessing Twitter in the first place for you to communicate such a huge policy shift on Twitter? And it speaks to how government has been dealing with business. But when you look at this agreement that government has signed, for someone who has been reporting around some of these agreements, the problematic agreements, you tend to see that government is not learning any lesson from it, because we are still paying the price for the controversial clauses that were in the Bujagali contract, something like that, because they're now going to add him another tax exemption for 5 years. It's the same thing like Bidiko. Government agreed to give Bidiko a certain amount of land in Kalangala, and they have failed to get that land to give it to Bidiko. So until when government gives that land, Bidiko is not paying any taxes. But we have seen the Bidiko is mostly dealing with oil and cooking oil and things like soap, and you've seen the prices of these commodities, how they have increased. So Bidiko, who has been here for some good time, over a decade, has not been paying taxes. And this is the same mistake they are making with this lady Pinetti, something. I hope I get her name very well. And
Yeah, Pinetti.
what yes, what really made the Uganda and some of them very angry about this news is this is the same lady who has been given a contract to construct Luboa. You see
Luboa,
that?
yeah.
And even, and you know the story, Honorable Kaswati can attest that the last time when he was in Parliament, a certain committee of Parliament attempted to go to visit Luboa, and they were chased. And you know what is the latest that has happened to Luboa? It is that yesterday I came to discover that government in this current financial year extended 348 billion shillings to Pineti to construct Luboa. You see that? And in this financial year, they are asking for 319. So initially the promissory notes were supposed to be, because the government had come with a promissory note. So the promissory note can only be issued if you fail to get the money from the financial. So that this means that this lady she had promised government that you guarantee me if I am going to get money from a British banker, but she didn't get this money. So now it's us who are footing the bill. But now this is the same lady you are bringing in to control the exports of coffee, managing coffee. And you know, the exports of coffee, and every month now, for instance, I just checked the one for February, the report that was issued. It's over 200 billion. That is the money that Uganda brings in. That 72.170 million US dollars brings over 200 billion. So you're bringing such a shrewd person to control such a sector, because look at how many sectors bring in all that money. And although there have been talks of Ugandans not consuming coffee at a high rate as other countries, that's why. But even the exports, you cater in the little coffee that remains in the country and is consumed.
On that very question of export, I want you to, because we know coffee currently is Uganda's second largest export after gold. Though we have less gold, but coffee brings in a lot in terms of export earnings. It's the second highest earner to Uganda's economy. But now, according to what we have seen on some of the reports we have seen of the signed agreements, this company is going to be exempted from paying taxes. And we are wondering, okay, you're going to be in charge of Uganda's second largest export earner. and they are going to exempt you from paying taxes. What implication will that have on our tax base, revenue tax base?
But you should not forget the fact that currently the agricultural produce are exempted from paying taxes. But you know we are looking at a company that was supposed to pay the other taxes like corporate tax or income tax. So those are the ones that we are foregoing or withholding things like that. So that is why now we are looking at such a kind of tax that we are foregoing, because although we know income tax is paid after profits, but for heaven's sake, you're dealing with a multi-billion company that is over 200 billion shillings every month. That is the money you're handling. So the break-even point is easier. It's not you're actually, she's not even starting from scratch because she has free land. You see that? If she's going to process coffee as she claims, she's not going to pay any tax on the machinery, everything that she's going to use. So basically, it's the customers who have to take their coffee from their farm and hand it over to them, and she's the one going to determine what price, because initially the farmers had a price to say, okay, I'm going to give Chidawalime or Olam, all those farms that were dealing in coffee exports. They will know that at least this one gives me at this rate, as the farmers knew themselves who to deal with. But now all those companies are going have also to collect and give it to her. So, and it also brings in legal questions. So what happens to these other coffee exporters that have been licensed? So they are also going to court because they have licenses to operate businesses in Uganda. But now you have pushed them. So it's now also a burden on the taxpayers, as you say. So the mere fact that we are going to forego, we have not even yet computed the what, the tax that we are going to forego, because usually the ministers usually bring and say, if we are exempting tax from this one, this is what we are going to forego. And you know the implication of the tax exemption, as you claim, there was a study done by Siatini, I think, in 2018. I forget about the implication of the tax exemptions, and they say that you will lose annually about 1.8 trillion in tax exemptions. You see that? That is some time back, and the list of tax exemptions keeps on increasing. And you know what happened? And the Auditor General even highlighted that there were some people on the list of tax exemptions whose grace periods had expired, but they are continuing to enjoy because Minister of Finance had forgotten to, I'm going to use the word forgotten, to do what? To to cross check and see that their grace periods have expired. So it's the whole mess, because even when I read the Monitor article, the PS Ramadan Gobi, when he was asked, he could not comment. To me, it spoke to someone who was overwhelmed by what is happening. And the mere fact that you know how he got onto office, people praising him that he's an economist, is going to bring sanity. I think the mafias have gotten on top of him, that he's short of words, he doesn't know even what is happening. He is shocked by himself in that he cannot even have answers for the media.
Okay, I want to bring back Honorable Moses Kasibante. You are a director of one of coffee growers in Uganda. That is Lusambia United Growers Limited, which also deals in coffee growing. Now they have brought in a monopoly, a company which all the coffee you're going to grow, you have to take it there and they have to determine the price of which price they can use to buy from you. You are not the one going to determine that price. Don't you think this is a betrayal by the political class to the farmers?
Government signing on behalf of the people, that must actually be protecting, should be protective in whichever deals it does with the so-called traders. When the government was getting out of ICO, the International Coffee Agreement,
everybody was hopeful, because the reasoning then was that ICO is a road deal. We were only allowed to sell green bean, and Uganda has reached a level of I mean, processing its own coffee. We have local companies here owned by Ugandans, the likes of Bugishu Cooperative Society. It is processing coffee, it roasts coffee. We have Chibinge, something in Masaka, it is also a coffee processor. The only thing, they were not allowed to sell to the international market under the ICO. And now you would think by pulling out of the ICO, we would be exploiting markets where we could be selling our locally processed coffee instead of selling the green bean. And the farmer, hopefully, would be getting more than what he could be getting selling green bean. But now we are having this European, and we are surrendering everything to do with the processed coffee to the European, determining the prices. And the government has no, in the agreement, it is not the proper when the government would be supervising and would say, no, this price is not good, would do this. Everything to do with the pricing has been surrendered for the 10 years to this teenage. But the other thing that is also worth noting is that even the local, you would now, I mean, government would now explain this in terms of the employment opportunities. But can you imagine this Coffee Limited is not even going to be submitting, contributing to any SSF. Now, the people, Ugandans who are going to be working there, even their social security is not guaranteed. There is nothing they contributing to any SSF like any other Ugandan companies. Well, to answer your question straight away, this is a bad deal. It is surrendering. Government is committing a peasant Ugandan to a sophisticated European company without any guarantee to the peasant before it could organize the peasant. You can now imagine who, after selling it to this company, can go and face the company in terms of negotiating prices. There is no way we can guarantee that this is going to be a good company, fair enough to give us fair prices. But also the other thing to note is, this is a new company in as far as coffee processing is concerned. No one can tell you it has any experience in coffee processing. It is actually beginning its trials in Uganda. So its incompetence would be greatly affecting the prices, because there are other players at the world market dealing in processing coffee. Now, that has just registered yesterday. How can we be sure that we could negotiate good terms and then compete favorably with the rest of the giant in coffee? But we have also some other problems. Even on spot, even at the signing of this agreement, this indicated that the capacity it has to process coffee annually, actually it can only process something like 27,000 tons per year. Much as it is promising a capacity of something to do with the 60,000 tons per annum. Now, Uganda produces more than 50, actually we are the million tons per annum. And now we are surrendering everything to do with the coffee. A company that cannot produce even 10 of what, cannot process even 10 of what we can produce. That is another danger provision within this. To me, ultimately, the whole thing is a sham. It doesn't any way guarantee the future of the Ugandan coffee farmer. It is surrendering the little that the coffee farmer could still be enjoying. I'm wondering, because there is only one provision where government can always come in and say, no, we can amend this, but that is also subject to mutual agreement between the two. Otherwise, we are facing, as Priska was trying to note, a scenario we faced with the Kananathan Agoa, when he was surrendered everything, including the facility of Coffee Marketing Board, formerly managing coffee in Uganda, in Bugorobi, which reached the extent of selling the equipment that it got from government instead of fulfilling the promise it had committed itself to. So it is a bad agreement.
Thank you. We are going to go for a brief break, and then we shall return with another edition.
everything, snacks are on the way.
Your thanks, but the reason that's why we are here, our people need improved health services. We at least need an ambulance at every center.
My sub-county is the farthest. We used to depend on the former MP's vehicle, but when he lost his elections, he took away his vehicle.
Of course.
So what does that mean?
Use your budget as a district to procure the ambulances.
Oh, if I could, I would. But unfortunately, government operates differently.
I'm saying, Chairperson, this is very serious and urgent.
Yes, I know. And why are they called local leaders then?
Local government.
You people, who sent you here?
I know, of course. We are concerned citizens who are watching people dying every day.
We've lost our beloved ones just because of poor health services.
Something has to be done.
You are right. Something has to be done, and very fast.
Yes.
That's transport for you. Go back.
But
All your concerns are taken care of. I will handle.
But
Have a
Chairman,
safe journey.
Thank you so much.
but this man seems to undermine our cause as to why we're here.
No, don't misunderstand me. This is just transport, no strings attached.
Chairman, we came here to discuss and find solution to our problems. But it seems you don't want to engage with us. Let's go and mobilize people, and you will see how serious we are.
Good citizens, let us always hold our leaders accountable. Leadership is a service, not a privilege.
Contribute today at www.politicalfinanceafrica.org/donate. Together, we can contribute towards enhancing democracy as a viable system of governance in Uganda.
Welcome back from that break. We are discussing about monopolization of coffee export in Uganda. Before we went to a break, Honorable Kasbante was trying to give us his insight about how the coffee farmers won't benefit from this road deal because it's benefiting those few individuals who are going to monopolize the export and the export industry of coffee in Uganda. Priska, you were discussing about the Lubowa hospital deal. Of course, we do know that the same person who signed, that is Enrica Peniti, who has signed the coffee deal, was the one who was also given, who was allocated 1.4 trillion to construct Lubowa Children's Hospital. It's now almost 3 years, and that hospital is not yet completed. And now we are seeing again the same person has signed another deal with government to be in charge of the coffee industry in Uganda. Why would government take such a step while they have a track record that this person one time was given a government deal to do and didn't complete at the agreed time frame? Now again we are giving the person another deal. Why would government do that? Could there be forces behind this investor?
Thanks so much, Abel, and I'm glad for the listeners who are still holding on to the show, listening to us. So that is why people, and this whole debate around the coffee thing has even taken a tribal sentiment, because from some people are saying, why, if they are so much hinged towards hell-bent on protecting the farmers, why aren't they getting one exporter of milk? And you know, when they say milk, what that points to. So, and it was the same sentiment that was alluded to by the Buganda Kingdom when this coffee bill was brought on board. So that is why some people are thinking that there is some big shot, as you always know. There is a mafia who is behind this deal, and they are connecting their dots, because this company was incorporated in January 2014, and about 5 months later, she was Enrica was going to meet the president in July 2014. And although some people may say that is a long period of time, it's not something over 8 years, you should not buy into it. But usually that is how these deals are being orchestrated. They kind of marinate Ugandans, and by the time the whole deal breaks out, you're already ready. They are ready for eating, as you say. So that is why the sentiment of a deep state, somebody is behind this, because getting all this free land exemption from taxes, and it's like you're having it the soft way. And we've seen this and we've seen this with the favoritism that the foreign investors get vis-a-vis the local ones, because as Honorable Kasfante alluded to, this person has no what experience in the coffee production, basically has nothing, not even a tree of coffee that they know of, because as coffee farmers, I'm very sure they know each other. I think they know. But this is someone who doesn't even have a tree of coffee in her backyard, but she's now going to control all the coffee farmers. And because from what I'm reading from that agreement is anyone who you're not going to be in position to export coffee on an individual basis. You see that you're all going to carry your bags of coffee to Namambe, and it's going to be this pin Enrica to export the coffee. And that is why the farmers are angry and shocked by this whole development. And I know that one person who has been protesting this thing so much has been Robert Kabushenga, the former CEO of what? Of New Vision. He has put up a spirited fight on Twitter. And some of them, the people who are benefiting from the deal, think he's speaking from a point of disgruntlement because he has left government. And yet, when you read through his arguments, they are genuine. You see that. So, this the ministry. I don't know how the Ministry of Finance is going to, because they have not come up to explain anything. The information we all have was from the tweets of the president, from the Minister Kasaija, and Minister Kasaija is on record saying I just signed something like that. He's on record because recently when Parliament was investigating the deal of the civil aviation, the controversial clauses, he said, me, I don't know anything. He admitted and he said he just signed. You see that? And he's not the first one, the first minister to say that. Even Saida Bomba came on another deal and said he just signed. So, and there is that provision in the law where the public servants cannot be held over some of the decisions they took while in office. That is why some activists have thought that probably that provision should be deleted and amended, and so that, because they are doing these things because they know there is nothing you're going to do about them. So apart from you going on Twitter and mocking Kasaija, what else is he going to lose in the end? Because the deal is still there. You're bound by it. You see that? As long as the government is bound by it, and if there is nothing that the coffee farmers are going to do, maybe unless if they take the same trend that the gold exporters did, because when the government slapped a tax levy on gold, I've seen all the reports from the economy performance of the economy report that we have not exported a single kilogram of gold ever since that tax was imposed. Probably that I see them as the only protest. But now, will you tell someone like who has invested a lot of money in their farm, for example, Honorable Kasbante, that you slash down your coffee trees because this agreement is not in protest? I do not know how we are going to deal with this situation because we are legally bound by it. It's something I'm looking forward to seeing how we are going to navigate it. But I really don't see any way out for the farmers.
Okay, I don't know whether Honorable Kasbante is back on. I would like to get his thoughts also on the same. Honorable, I think he still has network challenges, but I would love to get his insights. Priska, still on, I think we can still continue. You had it's reported that the finance minister, one of the arguments he gave for signing this agreement is that it will help do away with the middlemen who have been taking a lot of money out of the coffee business and government was not gaining a lot. Do you think by having such a monopoly to really cure this thing of middlemen, or it's just a rhetoric talk to justify why they have signed the agreement?
As you have said, it's the usual rhetoric that comes from government. When you look at, I cannot admit to be a coffee farmer, but that's why I think this question can be best answered by the honorable, because are the middlemen the biggest problem the coffee sector is facing? Because we are looking at people who are having problems with even accessing the market through the infrastructure, because most of these coffee farms are deep in the village, and some of the farmers are literally carrying their bags of coffee on their backs to at least leave the farms to the main road, and those are huge kilometers. So was it the most pressing issue that was up that warranted the ministry to come up and say, let's deal with the middlemen? As I told you, if they know the middle, they are policies of how they can do away with the middlemen. And so giving someone coffee on a silver plate, such a deal, is it actually they're even Enrica is even worse than what the middlemen were even doing. At least the farmers had the choice to say, let me sell to this middleman, because I know they would say this one is it will give me 2.5, this one will give me 3K, something like that. Yes, they might have been some devils within the sector, but they were better devils. And now that choice of choosing who should deal with my coffee has been taken away from them. Literally, they are helpless. And remember, these majority of them are the peasants. So the argument was just it depicts of a minister who was simply lazy at doing his own job. And I do not think that, because I remember from the photos, I don't remember seeing people from the Ministry of Agriculture and UCDA. That speaks volumes of what. But so for what I know is that there was no consultation made on what, on the mini, or from the side of the farmers themselves. Because if consultations were made, at least that document could have come to Parliament for scrutiny before it was even signed. But it was signed. It's a done deal now. Now, probably what I know is what Parliament is going to go back and do the second bit of trying to investigate and look through it, but it's a done deal, because the government cannot walk back on it.
Okay, thank you. Now, since Honorable, we need to give Honorable also some time. Honorable, you're welcome. You were part of the 10th Parliament that approved 1.4 trillion for the construction of Loboa Children's Hospital. And the person who is involved in the coffee deal again is the same person who was involved in the Loboa Hospital. And it's now 3 years down the road. The hospital is not yet complete. In your own opinion, do you think government was right to give the same person who has not completed the previous deal another deal?
Well, first of all, I should
Or are
state
there some
here,
other foreign forces behind this investor?
I want to state it clear. Parliament was never involved in signing this deal between the proprietors trying to develop children's hospital in Lubowa and government. It was just a concern later when it was even noted in the Auditor General's report, but also it was a concern from the public, and that's when Parliament was attempting. Priska there was noting how a committee of Parliament was not even allowed to go and supervise the work that was being done on the ground, and the documents were never provided in their fullest. It was actually a committee on health that had taken it upon itself to go and see what transpired. And you see how these agreements are done. Provision is the agreement were also that had been now signed at that level, discouraging any other attempts by government departments apart from the Minister of Finance and partly the Minister of Health, I would say. You see, the problem with these agreements are not signed involving stakeholders, and she has observed it very well. First of all, in the agreement between the government of Uganda and the proprietor of Rurowa Hospital, there was no involvement of Parliament, and you would think if Parliament is having the mandate of the rest of the people, and it would consult the stakeholders that are involved in that to its fullest and see whether it could actually be a deal to undertake. But even in this, we need to fight to understand who could be the stakeholders in as far as coffee is concerned. UCDA, first of all, it was never involved with itself. This deal, it couldn't even witness it. The deed, if you read, it was signed by the PSO, Minister of Finance, on behalf of government, and the company to which government committed Uganda needs. But the stakeholders of coffee are more than Minister of Finance, actually. Minister of Finance is Minister of Finance. And this takes me back to the argument I made referring to the Coffee Act, the Coffee Bill then now, an act where we were debating a provision requiring farmers of coffee to register with UCDA. And the explanation was that we needed to be organized as farmers, and then organizing farmers would mean having a vibrant cooperative society that could speak on behalf of them. This now brings me to the argument that this agreement was hurriedly done. Before organizing farmers, there are no stakeholders directly involved in coffee. There is no, in Uganda, a cooperative movement, a cooperative society to do with coffee that is recognized by the government of Uganda from the registered farmers of coffee. It is not there. Actually, in as far as I'm concerned, up to now, there is no desk within UCDA that is registering coffee farmers and coffee growers, and the coffee is grown. So no one knows who grows coffee, because that's why the law was enacted. Now, the stakeholders of coffee are not woken up. They're still asleep, as the government that's supposed to be waking them up is also sleeping on the same. It is committing them to these sophisticated international European traders. So the agreement per se, it is an agreement between businessmen and politicians in Uganda on one side, and businessmen and economists from Europe on one other end. And that is putting the vulnerable farmer at a very big risk. It is not consulted, not even Parliament. Parliament is also now getting a concern after the agreement. So this is very serious. And let me tell you, there is nothing that Parliament can still do with it, because the argument that would come is the argument that came with the Rurowa Hospital. They have already committed and signed. Any alteration is whoever breaches the agreement must be accountable and should be paying. You know, it is not very easy to for example, cancel a contract. I'm sorry, you could be listening to some noise. Those are the hazards of engaging the farmer.
It's okay.
I
It's
think
okay.
now it has been. But my point is, Parliament, as far as I'm concerned, it may not do much. Actually, it could only do more harm. What Parliament can do may not be on this specifically argument, but it can now stop government against any other engagement to this, similar to this, before Parliament itself is consulted. I think we should have an authority, we should create an authority to do with research. Now, Minister of Finance is the Minister of Finance. He only does with finance. It doesn't understand the coffee. The PS does not necessarily have to be a coffee farmer, doesn't understand it. The Attorney General, who could advise the government, may not necessarily be a farmer. Actually, is not representing the farmers, is not an agent of farming. Is not a stakeholder to do with farming. Doesn't know anything to do with the coffee, and these are the people committing Uganda. So the ultimate loss is going to be to the actual farmer, to us. Because, anyway, as I noted, there is no competence that has been proved within this, in as far as coffee processing is concerned. We have international brands already competing coffee from Uganda. I mean, what competence could the Minister of Finance prove in him? What they could do is just to do with the business. But anyway, we can see as this trends, we can tell the prices. That is minimal. The ultimate loss is not to them. The ultimate loss is to the farmer, who is not having any stakes in the commitment that has been done, but is the one to be at loss. So I could actually tell you, I was happy when government was giving reason for pulling out of ICO. And I thought we are going to be having perfect competition. The likes of Bogisu Cooperative Society, the likes of Chibing, already processing coffee, will now be exploiting other markets of selling finished products from coffee. But now we are committing, all of those are going to be suffocated. Actually, we are selling, even these ones are going to be, they can't compete.
I want now to ask, you've talked of us withdrawing from the International Coffee Organization because we thought it was not benefiting the local farmers and also other companies that were exporting coffee in Uganda. Now, don't you think these other people had premeditated and planned very well that let's withdraw from the International Coffee Organization and we go and create our own monopoly, whereby we shall now be based in Uganda, not again using the international world, but we use our own one farm in Uganda to export this coffee, but we have to make sure all those farmers bring. Don't you think these guys had planned so that they sat down and said the first thing we need to do is to withdraw from the ICO?
First of all, the capacity of this company is not enough to purchase all Uganda coffee at a fair deal. What it can only do is to have it lose price, because the capacity is stated in the agreement. It can't go beyond 60,000 tons per annum. Today, it can only, even at the signing, what they said they approved, it could only be 27,000 tons. So the capacity itself can't make you to do such a bad thing to your own country. But you see, these agreements are negotiated between businessmen in Uganda and businessmen from the other side, and their interest is only for money. I'm sure the businessmen from Uganda side have already gotten what they wanted. You see, and they dab as politicians, so they are the ones now at play. So there is nothing that is substituting the ICO. This makes ICO pulling out a big risk now. We can begin to see what is happening. The capacity is not even 10% of this, but also, who knows? That is just capacity in terms of equipment. Who knows the competence of the personnel? What image do they have already to attract international buyers of our processed coffee? Why wouldn't such deals be given, for example, to the local companies already here? Kiringi, Olam, so many others. Oram is in green bean, but they are those producing processed coffee locally. They have not asked for land. They're already using, I mean, they have everything already. They only needed maybe some little tax holidays to see how they can exploit the international market. And that was the hope. So what is happening is sharing Uganda's coffee like oil has been shared. You know, oil has been shared between businessmen, not even connected to wherever it comes from. So this is what happens with coffee. It is shared before we sell. Somebody has already gotten money on that would be our money. So the one to determine prices has already spent somewhere, and you can't expect a fair deal. It is
Thank
very
you.
absurd.
So,
Okay, Abel, before the honorable goes, I think our time is almost up. I am seeing a tweet from the Minister of Agriculture, that is Frank Tumwebaze, it's about 1 hour ago, a tweet. He has said that it's a clarification. He's saying a note to journalists calling me and seeking to know whether the Minister of Agriculture was consulted about that deal. He says the deal was signed on behalf of government by the Minister of Finance. So I advise all queries regarding the same to be directed to the Minister of Finance for correct information and reporting. So
That is a very good one. That is a very good one. Now, Minister of Agriculture is distancing itself already. And you would think if UCDA was a party, Minister of Agriculture would own it. So these are just businessmen and politicians playing on us, not involving us when they are committing us. It is very, very serious. So Minister of Finance is finance. We may think of where to get money, but then this thing goes at two ends. We need money. Anyway, we need industries, we need whoever. But it's our economy is based on agriculture. And we can't do anything that suffocates it. Okay, the first thing to think about would be how does the farmer benefit into this? So now Minister of Agriculture is disowning and referring the journalists to the Minister of Finance to ask finance about coffee. That is very, very serious. Govi is a very good economist, not a good farmer, not a good agriculturist. He has no stake into coffee. He would be a farmer anyway. But we need government networking farmers within Uganda. If it does with the coffee, then they would have a voice to go with it. If it does with the tobacco, then it should be networked. I could draw your attention to what happened to the dairy farming. You remember when these companies, local companies, were being zoned, something like one of them would be allowed to go to Chivoga, another would be allowed to go to Umbarara. They were zoned initially. Dairy farmers had to, because for them they have some voice. You see, most of the well-to-do people come from the area. And they said, when you zone these companies and you only allow one to come to a particular area, it would mean it would determine prices. There would be no competition. Then you would lose prices. Today, they go together, buy together. The one with the good prices gets from farmers. Why leaving coffee to a loss and now helping the other one to have it out away? There is a lot we would still discuss, but I think time is getting.
Okay, our time is fast spent, so I would like us. We know that Uganda has aspirations of making sure that the local people at the ground, their livelihood is revamped, and they have something. They want to move them to a monetary economy, and one way of moving people to a monetary economy, they should support them in their own local initiative, like now growing of coffee and making sure there is market which is favorable to the farmers. But now when you have such companies being brought whereby they want to determine the prices on which coffee farmers are to sell their coffee, are we in any way going to uplift our local people into a monetary economy? which government is trying to advocate for. So as we
First of all,
conclude, as we give your parting shots, kindly also respond to that question. I will start with you, Honorable.
thank you. First of all, Abel, government is on trial and error, and that is very, very risky. Government is not supposed to operate on a trial and error scheme. It has enough departments to do whichever it needs to find out what it wants to do. I've been to Parliament. I know how much government is losing while maintaining a coffee outlet in Guangzhou in China. And the explanation is it is trying to sell the Ugandan coffee flavor to the Chinese, which has failed. It has been there for now about more than 10 years. An outlet has workers on a daily basis paid from Uganda. Others are also expatriates from other countries growing coffee. I have visited it. It's a big outlet there. Now, for 10 years or so, it has not matured into any single deal about coffee. Actually, the Chinese are not buying it. And I know, I spoke to the Chinese. They normally want things that are fresh, and our coffee to them appears like it is over processed. When you tell them coffee, they look at the leaves and they ask you where they are. They have gone for tea, and there is a way it is kept, and the leaves are always looking fresh. So that trial and error is already taking a lot of our money and for nothing. But I know the personnel employed there, they are from big families, and for them, who are not even connected to coffee, by the way. They are from dairy farmers, but they are now the one who is selling our coffee in Guangzhou. But the other thing that is worth noting is, you see, what government is doing to increase coffee production and any other productions of other crops is just by increasing plants. That is nothing. What you need to increase is technology. So for it today, they are giving seedlings to every constituency. I was in Parliament and people were fighting for seedlings of coffee, seedlings of banana tubers, and almost fighting. And they were reasoning that they're taking their people to uplift their standards of living. That is hopeless. We need to enhance technology. People can always get plants from wherever they want. Seedlings can be gotten from bush, from forest. So it has not actually done much because government is ignoring the other part of technology. Now you can see what I think would be now having agreements to do with technological development. To see, I don't want to say Russian is now entering in agreements with them on how to do us simplified irrigation schemes, such things. The Ugandan coffee can market itself, by the way. We have one of the best flavors on international market. Now, somebody for 10 years operating an outlet of coffee in Guangzhou with about 50 personnel paid monthly. That's a lot of money. And technology here is failing. There is nothing they are doing to eat. People in Uganda, I was in Egypt. You can't make measuring drought is not, what could drought for them. Sunshine or no sunshine, rainfall or no rainfall doesn't matter to a farmer. Uganda, with all the rivers crossing every garden, we are still now waiting for rain to plant because the government has not come in to help people on how to improve technology can help calm nature. So to me, those are the serious things. Thank you.
Thank you, Priska.
Thanks so much, Abel. For as we have alluded to, there is I do not see anything that is going to benefit the farmers from this agreement that has been signed. And as the Honorable has also said, there is the opposition MPs may say they are going to petition court or they are going to petition, but the cost of doing that is going to be high because there is going to be a breach of contract if they are going to change the course of things, because the only option probably that I see is the two parties going back to the negotiation board, which I do not see. That renegotiating some of the clauses is going to be the only option. But as per now, I am afraid to break the bad news to the coffee farmers that they are in this up to the end, because there is also the provision of this contract elapsing in 2023 as they say. But 2023 is a lot of time. The money that the coffee farmers are going to lose within that time is going to be so much. I think the only option is them waiting for the time, because I do not see any changes, and there is no way that this deal was signed to favor the peasants, because from what I know is this government has been anti-poor. It hates poor people. And even recently, the Minister of Finance came out and said, I hate poor people. And he means it when he says he hates poor people. You see that? So, under no circumstance, this is just a business. And you know, when you're talking of business, we are not dealing with poor people. They are dealing with the rich. And when you look at who are the big shots in government who are into coffee farming, that you see that hold power, and you say, probably who have a farm compared to, say, Rachtura. Do we have those who have power and you say they can change the course of things? We do not have them. So literally the coffee farmers are on their own when it comes to this deal. And it's as I told you, because when I saw the photo that announced this agreement, I didn't see anyone from the Minister of Agriculture and UCDA. And when the Minister of Agriculture comes to say I was not party to that, it really verifies me and say the farmers were not consulted in the first place. Because the only way the farmers were going to be consulted is if this proposal was going to be brought to Parliament before. And they knew, the Minister of Finance knew that they could not bring this agreement to Parliament because this lady had not delivered on Lugoa. So it was going to face stiff competition in the first place. So that's why they had to sit in the boardroom and say, let's just dump this agreement onto the people. But for someone to think that this was done in the interest of the peasants, who the Honorable said are the majority growers of coffee, they would be lying to themselves and even lying to the peasants. This whole rhetoric of we are monetizing the economy, they know what they are supposed to do when you're trying to monetize the economy, but the government does not simply want to monetize the economy, because they want to hold you poor at that level so that you're governable. That is the whole essence.
Thank you, Priska, and thank you, Honorable Moses Kasbante, for joining us. It has been a pleasure having you too. It's did so interesting to have a discussion of such kind with you people. You're so knowledgeable about it. I would like to assure Ugandans outside there that we do know that any public policy that government comes up with and it's not in the best interest of the people, it is always the people at the end who will suffer. So it's upon them now to decide on what next action they can do. Either they can petition the government or they can try to engage with government on how to make sure that this agreement, once it expires, is not extended, because it's going to run most likely up to 2023. But now we are seeing very many coffee farmers are already up and they are saying this deal is a raw deal, it's not good for them, since most of the coffee they produce is now going to be determined, the prices are going to be determined by one company. So does it mean that this is the end for coffee farmers in Uganda? Are they trying to relegate coffee farmers in Uganda to other things and they leave the coffee sector? All those, we can still continue engaging about those things on our social media platforms. It has been a pleasure having you all. Let's again have another interesting discussion next week on Wednesday, same time, from 11 a.m. to 12 midday East African time. Thank you so much. Meet you again next week.